Welcome back to the Beginner's Bliss series, Lesson 1, Arabic Alphabets, Part 2. In today's lesson, we will learn the next 8 Arabic alphabets in detail. So the first letter today is Dal. Dal. Now the sound of Dal resembles the sound of letter D in dog, but there is a slight difference, and that is that the sound of Dal is softer than the sound of D. It is Dal, D, Dal, D. We won't say Dal, D. That is considered wrong. Dal, D is considered wrong. The correct sound would be Dal, D, Dal, D. Now these are the 4 forms of letter Dal. The first form is isolated, and that is a complete Dal in isolation, like the name suggests. Then comes the beginning, and that is the same as the isolated form. But when Dal is at the middle of the word, it will be attached to the letter before it. Same goes for the ending, but remember that Dal can also be found in an isolated form at the end of a word. And this rule is the same for all the letters in Arabic. When any letter of Arabic appears at the end of the word, we can see it being attached to the letter before it, or it could be in an isolated form. Now let's have a look at the examples. So the first example is Dars. Dars is a lecture. So we are in Dars 1 at the moment of the Beginner's Bliss series. Dars, lecture. We see that Dal is an isolated form because it is at the start of the word. Then we see a Dal that is at the end of the word, and the word is Fahd. Fahd, which is a leopard. Now here Dal is connected to the letter before it, but sometimes we might see it in an isolated form as well. And that's it for Dal. The next letter is letter Dal. Dal. Now letter Dal is from letter Dal's family because it is written the same way as Dal. The only difference is the dot on its top. So it is Dal. And the sound of letter Dal resembles the letters TH in this. Now, if you remember, we learned another letter that resembled the sound of TH. That was letter Tha. Letter Tha. Now, the sound of letter Dal is Dal, Dal, and the sound of letter Tha was Tha, Tha. Now, why do they both resemble the sound of letters TH in this? That is, if you notice, when you read the letter Tha, Tha, your tongue touches the corners of front 2 teeth. Tha. And when we read the letter Dal, that is exactly what happens. Our tongue touches the corners of our front 2 teeth. And that is the reason why we say that the sound of both these letters resemble the letters TH in this. Now we'll do the properties of letters later on and you'll know the reason behind this. Anyway, getting back. These are the 4 forms of letter Dal. The first one is isolated one. The second one is the beginning one, same as isolated. And then comes the middle form. So Dal is attached to the letter before it, and then the ending is same as middle, but it could also be in an isolated form when Dal is written at the end of the word, just like Dal. Let's have a look at the examples. The first example is Dhahab. Dhahab, which is gold. We see that Dal is written separately. It's not joined to any letter because it is at the beginning of the word. The next example is Jeza. Jeza, which is a tree trunk. Jeza. Now we see that Dal is connected to the letter before it, which is the letter Jim. So this is letter Jim, Dal. Dal, ba. That's it for the dal. The next letter is ra, ra, ra. Now the sound of ra resembles the sound of letter R in river. And the only difference between the sound of letter R and letter ra is that ra is pronounced with a fuller mouth. So the sound of ra is heavier than the sound of letter R. For example, we say river, river. But the sound of ra is ra, 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 ra. We'll go through the examples to understand the sound and composition of ra better, but before that, we are going to have a look at the four forms of ra. Just like the rest of the letters, when ra is written in an isolated form, it is not connected to any letter. Then comes the beginning. It is just like the isolated form. And when ra is written at the middle of the word, it is connected to the letter before it, and same goes for the ending. And just like the rest of the letters, ra is found at the end of the words in an isolated form. So these are the two examples for letter ra. The first example is rajul, 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 which is a man. Now notice I'm not saying rajul, I'm saying rajul. So the sound of ra is heavier than the sound of letter R. Next is jaros, jaros, which is a bell. Jaros, again, the sound of ra is fuller. Here, ra is connected to the letter before it, which is letter G. That's right. Now, the next letter looks like the letter ra with a dot. It is called Zai or Za. Both the names are correct. Zai, Za. The sound of letter za is exactly like the sound of letter z or z in zip. So it has a very clear buzzing sound to it. Za, z, za, z. And the four forms of this letter are exactly like that of the letter ra. Let's have a look at the examples. Now the first example is Zahra, Zahra, which is a flower. Zahra, Zahra. And the second one is Zayt, Zayt. Now, if you notice, there is a very clear buzzing sound when I say Zahra, Zayt. And let's have a look at the letter Ra as well. I just said Zahra, Zahra. So, Ra is pronounced with a fuller mouth. Now, make sure you don't mix this letter with the letter Dal, which had a dot on it as well. Remember, letter Dal has no buzzing sound to it, and letter Za or Zai has a buzzing sound to it. The next letter is called Seen. Seen. And the sound of Seen is exactly like the sound of letter S in sun. Seen. S. Seen. S. It has a very prominent hissing sound to it. Seen. S. The formation of this letter is also different than the ones we have learned today. Unlike Ra and Za, Seen is joined to the letter that follows it, and as well as the letter that is before it. So in isolated form, it will not be connected to anything, of course, but when Seen is at the beginning of the word, it is connected to the letter after it. And when it is in the middle of the word, it is connected to the letter before it as well as the letter after it. And at the end, it is the same like the rest of the letters. It is connected. It could be connected to the letter before it, but it could also be in an isolated form sometimes. Let's have a look at the examples. The first example is samak, 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 which is a fish. So it is connected to the letter after it. In the second example, seen is in the middle of the word. Masjid, masjid, which is a mosque. Masjid, it is connected on both sides. Samak, masjid. And that's it for seen. Now the next letter is from the family of seen. And the difference between seen and sheen are the 3 dots on sheen and the sound as well. So sheen, the sound of sheen is exactly like the sound of sh in sheep. Sheen, sh, sheen, sh. This is the sound, and the formation of sheen is exactly like the letter seen. You can have a look at it. Let's look at the examples. Now the first example is shams, which is sun. Shams, shams. So the sound of sheen is shams. And you can also notice the sound of seen here. Shams, shams. In the next example, shajara, shajara, which is a tree. So sheen is connected to the letter after it. That's it for sheen. Now the next letter is a letter with a heavy sound, and this letter is called sod, sod, sod. Now I have not mentioned any sound for it from an English word because the sound of sod is not present in English. The sound of sod is very heavy. Sod, sod. So you have to pronounce it with a fuller mouth. If you don't do that, you are going to mix sod with seen, which was just a hissing sound, and it was lighter. That's the sound of seen. The sod. So there is a clear difference between the sound of letter sod and the sound of letter seen. This might sound difficult, but with practice you will get a hand of it pretty quickly. Now the formation of sod is just like the letter seen or sheen, in the sense that it has the same forms. If it is written in an isolated form, it will be isolated, of course. When it comes at the beginning of the word, it is connected to the letter next to it, or the letter that is followed by sod. And when sod is in the middle of a word, it is connected by both the sides. When it comes at the end, it could be connected, or it could also be in an isolated form. Let's have a look at the examples. Now the first word is qasr. Qasr. Now we see that sod is heavy, and another letter which is also slightly heavy with a fuller mouth is ra. Qasr. Qasr. Now if I were to say qasr, the meaning would change. Qasr is not a palace. Qasr is a palace. The second example is Misr, which is Egypt. Misr. Misr. Again, sod will be heavy and not Misr. Misr. That's it for sod. Next up is the letter Dod. Again, just like sod, it is a very heavy letter. It is pronounced with a fuller mouth. And this sound is also not present in English, so I did not come up with an example. Now the letter Dod, it even looks like sod, it just has a dot on it. The formation will also be same, so I'm just going to explain the sound of it. Dod, 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 which will be heavy. If you don't pronounce Dod with a fuller mouth, you are going to mix this up with the letter Dal that we learned in this specific lesson. Dal is D, Dal, D, Dod, Do, Dod, Do. Now, the reason I am emphasizing on the sounds in Arabic language or Arabic alphabets is that the meaning could completely change if the sounds change. So we have to learn the alphabets properly. Let's have a look at the examples. All right. So the first example is wow. Wow. Now I'm not going to say thou. Thou would be anything but light. Wow. Wow, which is light. Now the second example is ard. Ard. Ard, which is earth. Now an interesting fact is that ard is actually an Arabic word, and the word earth in English has been derived from this particular word. All right, and that brings us to the end of Arabic alphabets part 2. Now, what I've done here is just like the part 1, I have come up with 4 words consisting of the letters that we have learnt in part 1 as well as part 2. So the first word is Burj. Burj. Burj is a tower. It consists of 3 letters, ba, ra, jim. And the second word is shakhs. Shakhs is a person. Sheen, kha, sad. Shakhs. The third word is hajar. Hajar, ha, jim, ra. And the last word is jasad, which is a body. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you. Hajar is a stone. Hajar, stone. Jasad is a body. Jim, seen, dal. Now what you have to try is that you have to connect them together to make a word. Let me know in the comments below how many of them have you gotten right. You will find the answers in the description. Subscribe for more. Ma salama.